Okay, so the last area we talked about filtration, selection of chemical treatment, and now monitoring and control. It's fun to build stuff and buy a piece of technology, but unless someone looks after it and tests that it's working, then none of these technologies is going to be effective. So we need to have an operation and maintenance schedule, just as exciting as flossing your teeth, but without any monitoring, there is no management. And here's an example of that. We have a very good grower who was propagating. They had a chlorine tablet injector to the sideline where water would pass through the injector, a small amount of that water, and it would dose with chlorine by dissolving the tablets. And there was somebody whose job it was to check that that tablet injector here, a very simple piece of technology, always had tablets in it, and he would check off each day, and yes, there were tablets in there, so there was chlorine to dose. But when we tested the chlorine levels, there was no chlorine, no residual chlorine in their water. And the reason was that the little valve that affected how much flow went through the injector had been turned off too much. So there was never any real water going through that injector. So unfortunately, that's just an example of having yet another thing to measure. And in this case, it was going to be measuring the amount of residual free chlorine that was going into the irrigation system. We again return back into thinking about water supplies. Well, there are very well-defined quality standards from the EPA for pathogens, for turbidity, for inorganic chemicals, for organic chemicals such as herbicides, for sanitizing agents such as chlorine. There's standards for drinking water, and we can also define pretty well what those standards are for horticultural irrigation water. For pathogens, we can send samples off to a plant pathology lab for plating out of Pythium phytophthora. For biofilm, we can check whether we're getting clogging. We can also get a bacteria count, colony-forming units per milliliter. Algae, we can see the algae where it's present. We can also send a sample off to a specialist lab. For particles, again, see if we're clogging emitters with grit, with sediment and silt and so on. We can test suspended solids by sending a water sample off for them to measure that for us. And chemical treatments, we can also be testing for those as well. So without monitoring, there is no management.